I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, December the 23rd, just 2 days before Christmas. And that's the first thing I want to do is to wish all of y'all a Merry Christmas and to thank you from the bottom of my heart. This report, the feeder flash here with DV Auction, has grown so much here in the last year, and we've got a lot of followers, and just have all of you guys to thank for that. Just from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate all of you guys that watch it once in a while, and especially you guys that watch it on a regular basis. I do my absolute best to give you guys a fair, honest, upfront, and kind of a layman's logical look at the market every business day here, and I'm sure tickled to death that some of you guys find value in it. I sure don't know any more than any one of you out there, but I have been reporting these cattle markets for the majority of my life, and I know where to find the information. I can kind of help you guys dissolve part of the hard parts away and look at it for what it's worth, and I'm just glad you guys are finding some value in it and enjoy making it part of your day lots of times. I want to thank you guys that are customers of DV Auction here, all of our production sale customers. We're moving into our busy spring bull sales, and we're going to be busy, and just know that we appreciate each and every one of you guys too. We'll try to do you the best job that we can. We got the biggest buyer base in the business, and if you guys haven't booked your spring bull sale or production sale of any kind, get a hold of us. We'd be glad to help you. I'd like to thank all of our sale barn broadcasting customers, and we appreciate all of you. And we also appreciate you markets that share your information with us. Your market every week here automated, and it helps us put this report together and come up with the National Beef Wire and our National Beef Wire screen here that so many of you find value in, and be glad to take any more of you sale barns out there that would like to volunteer to let us tap into your market each week. It doesn't cost you a thing, and I swear I wouldn't hurt you at all, just having you guys push a little data to us there. But I won't dwell on this anymore, but just remember the season, guys. Think about those of us that are less fortunate. Think about our troops overseas that don't get to come home and be with their family. There's been a lot of bankruptcies this past year. It's been a tough year for a lot of guys in the cattle business, and those that lost all their margin and had to throw in the towel. And I do think that we've got good times coming ahead, but you know, there's been a lot of floods, bad weather, market deals that have really took a toll on a lot of them, and there's a lot of guys that aren't there anymore. We need to try to preserve as many cattle producers as we can. That's what holds this country together, what holds our little ranch communities, our small farm towns and things together. We need to continue to support ideas and different things that change within the industry that hold all of our producers together, and continue to push back against vertical integration and things that forces our smaller guys out. The average age of our cow-calf man is well into his 60s, and I tell you what, we need to hold on to as many of them as long as we can. There's just not that many young guys coming into the business, and some of the things that come down the pike, it causes these older guys to throw in the towel sooner than they have to, and we don't like to see that. And I always say, if you want to kill an old cowboy off, just make him sell his cows, and it doesn't take very long right after that. But appreciate you guys, and like I said, remember why we're celebrating Christmas. One thing that my family does every year is we have a birthday cake during Christmas dinner. And we sing happy birthday to guess who. And I guarantee you, if that don't ring true and make you think about it, then nothing will. But just appreciate all you guys, and I'll get on with the report here. Look at the board for last week. December live cattle futures. Monday was down 7, Tuesday down 7, Wednesday up 2 cents, Thursday down 12, and Friday up 10. Didn't do anything. So your December live cattle futures ended the week at 122.22, down 15 cents for the week. So evidently, your traders and your investors and all those that play the market all the time are pretty happy with the way things are right here to end the year. February live cattle futures ended the week at 125.80. Now that was down $1.75. January feeder cattle, Monday down 42, Tuesday down a dime, Wednesday down 60, Thursday up 17, and Friday down 45. And you would have thought that would have killed your cash feeder cattle markets, but they were quite a bit higher. But January feeder cattle ended the week at 144.27, down $1.40. March ended at 144.37, just a dime higher than that, down $1.88. Your fat cattle trade for the week last week, 49,200 head through Thursday. A little bit of cleanup business, mostly just in the Midwest and the Northern Plains. We may can add another 15 or maybe possibly 20 to that, but it's still going to be kind of a lighter pre-holiday week there. But we did have trade, and we did establish a market, and it was higher. Your steers and heifers on a live basis in your 5-area feeding region negotiated, sold from 119 to 122, mostly 120 with 121 there prevalent later in the week, and that was kind of reserved for your western Nebraska, Colorado, parts of Wyoming, and some of your better cattle, maybe confinement deals, some clean cattle in Iowa and places like that. But quite a bit of 121 also. Your weighted average on live steers was 120.20. That's pretty good. But basically, your live cash fat cattle market was $1 higher. Now on a dress basis, well, we traded them from 190 all the way up to 196.50, but it was mostly 192. That would have been $2 higher dressed, and didn't see a whole lot of wavering from 192. And in fact, your dressed steer weighted average was 190.185. Your heifer weighted average dress basis was actually 190.199. So you can't get a heck of a lot closer to 192 than that. But pretty good market, and surprised a lot of us that we could actually gain another $1 or $2 here this late in the year, and with a lot of pressure on box beef cutout values. We thought we had kind of hit a bottom on box beef cutout values the previous week, but this past week we lost a whole bunch more ground, and brought that choice select spread really tight in there and came together really fast. But choice cuts, your average trade for last week on choice cuts, 211.63. That was $7.51 lower than the weighted average from the previous week. Select cuts weighted average on last week's trade, on a pretty decent trade for a pre-holiday week, 202.51, down $1.96 on the weighted average compared to the previous week. Choice select spread on your total trade there for the week, $9.12. It was actually just about $8 there late in the week. But 634 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. That's a pretty decent movement there. We wouldn't be upset with that anytime, and especially right here as we're moving into the Christmas week. Your slaughter for last week, 668,000. That was 6,000 more than the previous week, and 8,000 more than the same week a year ago. We've got a larger harvest this year than we did a year ago, and that one was 2.5% larger than the previous year. So we're moving through a lot of cattle, moving through a lot of product. We've slaughtered a lot of beef cows and a lot of beef heifers. A lot of heifers fed and harvested this past year, and it's taken a toll, and it's going to start showing up here as we move forward, getting these prices kind of responding to lower supplies. But what happened late in the week last week, your cattle on feed report came out. I don't know if it was a big major mover. If you just look at the quotes that come out, your percentages were fairly bearish just on the surface, but you got to look at them a little bit closer than that. But your on feed inventories December the 1st, it come out to be 102.5% of the same report a year ago, which was about 0.6 of a percentage point more than the average guess, which was 101.9. That's not overly bearish there. It's on the bearish side, of course, but it's not a market killer or anything. Your placements, November placements, 104.9, nearly 105% of it a year ago is what come in, and they were only guessing 101. Now that does seem pretty bearish, but you've got to look at the data and see that they were all really light cattle. A lot of people had cattle ready to go on some wheat, and I've been telling you guys that wheat was just kind of a bust, and a lot of guys that got turned out on wheat that maybe they owned or were able to turn out earlier than what the November 15th is what usually your leaseors let you have it or turn out that date. But man, as soon as they turned those cattle out there, it just went away in a hurry, and so they had to move those cattle. But a lot of those cattle that went into the feedlot were light cattle. In fact, your placement numbers of weights under 600 pounds was up 11%. So that would account for a lot of that, almost 5% that we saw our placements go up. And those cattle won't go back out on wheat or anything else. They'll stay in the feedlot, but if they're going to be a little bit hard to track. You're putting cattle in there weighing under 6. Some of them are going to peter out on you kind of early. Some of them, it just depends on what kind of ration you give them. Some of them will grow on up there and feed out okay, but they're not going to hit any of our finished markets for a long, long time. In fact, probably longer than a lot of our cattle that are out right now being dry wintered. So we can't really think that that's going to be a big bearish signal on our market. Your marketings during November of fat cattle at 97% compared to the guess, which was 97.2. But you got to remember, we had that plant down that whole month there in Holcomb, Kansas. So if you don't have that product there, it's hard to market, and we had fewer days there to work with too. Talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DV auction 145.62, actually up $2.26 compared to the end of the previous week. So we gained ground on your cash feeders, even though our board was a little bit lower. But our fat cattle was supportive, and we haven't seen any of the results of this cattle on feed report, which I do not think is going to make a big difference here at all, guys. But you look at your cash feeders for last week, they were firm to $5 higher. And that was kind of all through the week. Everybody was just a little bit better. And it was a noticeable recovery on your heifers. If you remember the previous week, we really saw a lot of your farmer feeders come in from the Midwest, and those guys just want steers. And so there wasn't as many heifer orders out there. So we saw a big disparage in the way that, the demand for steers and heifers, and it caused our steer heifer price spread to spread out a little bit more. But it come back together in most of our markets as, anytime you advertise a hole in the market, you're going to have some buyers that go to it. And a lot of them did, because a lot of those heifers you could hedge on the board and make them work a lot easier than you could the steers. It's just that there were so many more buyers, the independent buyers that just wanted the steers, because most of our commercial and our bigger feedlot deals were all full up, so they didn't have any room to go in. But we struggled all last week with the Trump impeachment deal, and then it ended up the end of the week they didn't even have guts enough to send it on up to Senate. Not sure what kind of games they're playing. Probably what happened is Trump sealed his re-election, because those of us that are Trump supporters, we've never wavered, and then a lot of the independents, they saw the way that they wheeled him around, and they're probably just going to vote for him because of the way they tried to rig the system there and force him out so that we couldn't vote him back in. But that's been good. We've got a lot of these trade deals working. The China deal's coming back. It's gonna be a lot better as we work down the road. Japan is where we've regained a lot of that beef demand that we're going to enjoy here going forward. Hopefully they'll get back to the levels they were at before we saw the mad cow deal many years ago. But the U.S., Mexico, Canada deal, it's not going to change things a whole lot, but it's going to settle down because we'll have some kind of an agreement under signature, and that's going to be a good deal to kind of get that settled. We don't like to keep things up in the air, but as we move forward here, we've got a lot more unilateral trade deals that we'll get, and hopefully some of those will help our beef out a little bit. But I think as we move into the new year, I'm not going to be having a visit here most of this week. We might give you a visit there at the start of the New Year's week there, just to see if we had any fat cattle trade and see what the board did and things like that. But for the most part, there's not going to be any trade of feeder cattle, of course, because most all of your sales are going to be shut down. Got a few sales, mostly on the smaller side. Going to be having some maybe on Monday here, but it won't be any of your high volume markets. And then we probably won't see anything again till New Year's week. But once we get to New Year's week, we're going to go back to business. New Year's Day is not a big holiday, and we like to watch football, but other than that, it doesn't slow anything down really. And we'll get back to full board trading again by the time we get into New Year's week. I think we could see a significant bounce upwards in the market as we get into the new year. Most all of those cattle are going to be long time weaned, had a lot of weather on them, and going to be very attractive to your buyers. And we're going to have 2 full weeks here where we didn't have a whole lot of feeder cattle moving, and they're continuing to move fat cattle out the other end of these feedlots. It's going to shake things loose a little bit. We've had pretty good weather. They've gotten things kind of cleaned up around, and I think we should have a little bit of pen space to work with, and that's kind of been our limiting factor here the last several weeks. There's just been no place to go with these cattle. So I would expect our cash markets to be pretty good as we get going back again. We've seen some people come into these cow sales. They've been having a lot of cow specials, replacement cows, bred heifers, things like that here late in the year. And we've seen people be pretty optimistic there. I think they're seeing the signs that our numbers are going to be going down here, and it's time to get back in. A lot of your Nebraska cow sales, those premium places out in western Nebraska and along Highway 20 there, we saw young bred cows bringing from 1,500 to 1,900. And that sounds high to most of you guys. Some of you may not. But tell you what, if that's cheaper than they've been in the past. For a cow that's got a lot of life to them, and it may be a pretty good investment if you've got a way to keep them fed. Let's talk about some some markets here, individual quotes here. Late in the week last week on Friday and Saturday, to kind of give you an idea of how good things are going, and we're finishing this year out and moving into the holiday season with a spring in our step as far as the market goes. Mankato Livestock, Mankato, Kansas, 64 head of 849-pound steers bring 150.75. That's a heck of a market. How about a calf market up there in Nebraska? Verdigray Stockyards, Verdigray, Nebraska, 91 head of 549-pound steers, 177.25, and they're not weighing 501, guys, weighing 5.5. And then our big quote on some big steers on Saturday, Fort Scott Livestock Market's a DV auction market just like Verdigray, and you can view that sale every Saturday there at Fort Scott, and man, they can sell the cattle there, and that's on the eastern side of Kansas there. But 56 head of 1,040-pound steers bring 140.25. Wow, that's a good market there. Merry Christmas to you guys, and we'll talk to you here between Christmas and the New Year.